I'm Spencer Hughes, and this is a recap of this past Sunday's message at Union Grove Missionary Baptist Church. I came from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse number 2, and it says this: Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And so I talked from the thought of change. So I started out by asking the question to the congregation for ponder: if there was something that you could change about yourself, what would that be? And I went through a number of things that we may change. Our eyes, we may change how tall we are. We may change our size. We may change just a number of things we may change. But I focused on them understanding that oftentimes it's the outward things that we look at, especially society. Society focuses truly on the outward. I want to focus on the inward part of us, the inward change that needs to happen in us. So in that particular verse, Romans chapter 12, verse number 2, it says to make sure that we are avoiding looking so much like the world that there's no distinction between us and the world. That's one thing that I pulled out of there. But it says to be transformed. But it says how to do it is by the renewing of your mind. And so I talked about reprogramming your mind. That if we were to focus on the inside of us, are there some things that we would change? For some of us, we may want to change, being impatient. Maybe we may have a critical tongue when it comes to people. Envy, jealousy, resentment. It may be we have a guilty conscience about things. Some stubbornness, ungratefulness, procrastination. That's one that jumps out at me quite a bit. Inability to set boundaries. The point is that all those things that I just mentioned, they're not things that people see when they just encounter you for the first time. It's not something that you can see from across the room. Those are internal things that we can work on, or that we should work on, that we can change. But the way we do that is that we have to reprogram our mind. In the earth, the biggest, the greatest, the best computer there is the brain. And part of that is the mind. It's the mind. It's the part of us that motivates us to accomplish things or not to accomplish things, that motivates us to walk the narrow path or to choose the broad path. It's the mind. Before there's one thing that stands out to me. Before we ever do a sinful act, it starts in the mind. So it's the mind. That's where we need to focus our attention. And so I want to encourage the people on Sunday to do 3 things to reprogram the mind. 3 things to reprogram the mind. Can I share those 3 things with you? Number 1 is have a conscious commitment. Really, every day, make a decision to be better than we were the day before. A conscious commitment. Today, I commit to walking this walk with the Lord as strongly, as profoundly as I can. A conscious commitment. We make resolutions at the beginning of the year, and quite often by this time, they're falling apart. I'm not talking about making a resolution. I'm talking about a commitment to the Lord and a commitment to yourself. Make a conscious commitment. Number 2 is be consistent in your character. One thing my father and my mother taught me a long time ago was your word is your bond. Your word is your bond. And I knew what that meant was that people would trust you based on what you say. But the reason why they trust you based on what you say is because your character shows that your word stands strong. And so it's about us having consistent character. There should not be a question about who you are, especially when it comes to your family, friends, and come to other believers. There shouldn't be a question because your character is consistent. Now, one thing that I want the young people to know or to hold on to is that your character is the you. Now, listen to this. Your character is the you that's there when nobody else is around. That's character. That's character. Character is not what shows up when you have a big crowd. Character is not what shows up on a Sunday morning when you get to church and you looking all good. Character is not what shows up in the classroom or on the job when you're around everybody. Character is to you that even when no one else is around, you're going to do what is godly. You're going to do what are the things that are the good, perfect, and acceptable will of God. That's character, and we have to be consistent in character. It can be hard in this world. It can be hard to be consistent in character. It's easy to flip-flop and to give in to the winds and the whims of the world, but we have to be consistent in character. The third thing and the final thing is that if we are going to have a conscious commitment, if we're going to be consistent in character, the way to accomplish that so that we have a transformed mind is that it has to be Christ-centered. It has to be Christ-centered. Y'all remember a few years ago, there was the saying, what would Jesus do? Well, just ask yourself that. What would Jesus do? But you know, a better way to be Christ-centered is to yield to the Holy Spirit. Let the Holy Spirit show you what Jesus would do in that situation. Let him guide you. A Christ-centered life is a spirit-led life. A Christ-centered life is a life that is surrendered to the Lord, and that no matter what comes, you are going to be committed to walking out what God has called you to. That no matter what comes, you're going to work on your character every day. Your character every day. It's the repetitiveness. Reprogramming your mind is by being repetitive. Change is inevitable. It's gonna happen. Keep living. Keep doing, waking up every morning. Keep going to sleep every night. There's going to be some change. There's going to be some change. But the type of change that we're talking about is the one that lasts. Not just a lifetime, but last an eternity. Change. I pray that you were blessed with this word. I'll be back next week with a word from this coming Sunday, if the Lord say the same, of how we can look at treasures. That's what I'm going to talk about this Sunday, treasures. I pray that you were blessed. If you would, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if there was a blessing, and if you feel it, share it with somebody. That'll be a blessing to them. Again, this is Pastor Spencer, and I pray that you have a wonderful rest of your time.